Hello everyone. In this video we're gonna have a look on the 7Artisan 35mm f 1.4 lens. This lens is based on a Sonnar and Biogon design, which 7Artisan kind of used together in order to create a unique optical formula that delivers something truly unique. When I first got my hands on this lens and used it for a little bit, I was kind of expecting it to perform similar to the f2 version, but just being a little bit bigger and letting more light into the lens. However, that's not the case at all. The f2 version is a little marvel that are almost optical perfection. This one, however, is nothing like that. This one is a marvel of its own. It doesn't stand for optical perfection rather than optical perfection when it comes to the look. This lens has a truly unique look. As 7Artisan describes it by themselves, it kind of have oily colors with a soft look. However, I in certain ways agree with that description, but I want to point out that when it comes to sharpness, especially in the middle, this lens is sharp, but that sharpness doesn't go all the way out to the edges, especially not if you're shooting wide open. But what it also does is that it creates a separation between your object and the background that is quite unique. There's a certain, shall we say, 3D pop to it? Or let's just stick with pop. The subject that you're shooting is popping out of the frame in a very nice way. It's hard to put your fingers on it and say this is what's happening, this is what's going on. But when I look on the images that I've done on people with this lens, there is a distinct pop. It feels like the subject kind of gonna take a step out of the image. Besides that, we also have a very beautiful bokeh, we have a very beautiful image, and this lens tends to have become one of my favorite lenses all time ever, and that's quite unique for it. I wasn't expecting this at all. And what makes it so fun to use and what makes this look so unique is because it is based on that old school Sonnar and that old school Biogon design. It's not just marketing that you kind of hear sometimes when people are saying that a lens have a certain character. This lens has a character, and 7Artisan clearly know what they are doing when they are designing lenses. We have seen them creating exceptionally good lenses, and now we see a lens that has an exceptional look to it. They are both good on creating a look and technically good lenses. When we're talking about price and value of this lens, you have to compare it to the older size lenses and older lenses that you can pick up and put on your Leica camera. But we all know what the price is for those old school Leica lenses, and that price is, well, high. And this one isn't, especially if you compare it to those. It's between 300 and 400-ish. I enjoy using this lens both on a full frame camera and on an APS-C size camera. I can't really decide which one I like the more or which one I like the less, which is a nice thing because it's two different fields of view. Let's talk a little bit about the background of this lens and the design so you understand more where this lens comes from. The Sonnar design was originally developed by Carl Zeiss in the 1930s, and it's characterized by its 6-element in 3-group construction. The design places the aperture blades in the front, which helps to create a pleasing bokeh, a sharp image with a good contrast. On the other hand, the Biogon design is slightly different. It comes in a symmetrical 6-element in 4 groups construction, and they place the aperture blades in the middle of the lens, which can lead to a more even distribution of light and also reduced distortion. And this lens combined those two optical designs to create an optical formula that is quite unique. But still has that old school aesthetic that you would get in those iconic old school Leica lenses. Let's talk about the technical specifications before we continue to talk about the image character that this lens has. First of all, it's a 35mm f1.4 lens. It has 10 aperture blades and the optical elements is 10 and they are arranged in 9 groups. The weight of the lens is 404 grams, quite a lot for a small lens. However, it's an all metal construction and the build quality is superb. Everything has a very nice and smooth tactile feeling. Everything from the focusing ring, which is graded with distances, which helps you for zone focusing and stuff like that. When it comes to the aperture ring, it has clicked stops that goes all the way from f1.4 up to 22. It also has a built-in hood, which is a very nice thing to have, and it has a focusing tap that is included with the packages that you could just put on with some 3M tape, which is also included. I put this focusing tap on the very first day I got it, and it still sticks there and it fits very well. Besides that, it's a Leica M mount, which is very nice because it's highly adaptable, and the adapters you use on this lens is quite small, which makes this lens fits and look good on every camera. The flare control of this lens is very good. Even if I point the lens straight towards the sun, there's not much flares and there's not a loss of contrast as many other lenses does. This is good in one way, but also in another way, flares are pretty nice. But keep in mind, this lens doesn't flare much if that's the kind of character that you want. So let's sum this up. Would I recommend anyone to buy this lens? Well, absolutely. This lens provides a quite unique experience. It has an optical formula that is very different from many other lenses that you've seen on the market today. And if you want something similar, you kind of have to look on those older Leica lenses that this lens is inspired by. But then you also need to pay a much higher price, much higher price, not just a higher. So this lens kind of give you that old school aesthetic that you get on the original lenses where this one is inspired on. And that's the whole thing with the 7Artisans. They know what they're doing and they provide a quite unique photographic experience. And even if you are of that school where you prefer a lens that is optical perfect, where it's perfectly sharp from edge to edge, I would still recommend you to try something like this, because the look you get on a lens like this is quite unique. And it's nothing like those newer, more clinical looking lenses. And there is a lot of people who really appreciate this look and this characteristic that you get from this lens, me included. I really like it. I think it looks good. It has a certain aesthetic on it, and it's very rewarding to use this lens, especially considering that it's a manual focusing lens, and it feels good when I nailed the images. And it feels good when I get that image with the sharpness at the right place. However, sometimes the image you get out of this is pretty good, even if the sharpness is not spot on where you kind of wanted it. This makes you kind of open up your eyes to see that there is much more to photography than just perfect quality or perfect sharpness or newer technology. There is this whole thing, which is the image making, where you kind of taking the step from photography being something technical to photography being something creative, and all that creative spark that you kind of can get from within comes out with this lens. Does it make sense? Well, for some and for others maybe not. However, this is definitely a lens worth buying, and it's a fun lens to use, and I really enjoy using it. If you want to see more camera related stuffs, click here to see a full playlist with camera stuffs and click here to subscribe. Thanks for watching and I see you later.